And so the second one that we're going to concentrate on before we close up this episode is the natural law. So natural law theory believes that moral precepts exist independently of our judgments and are binding to all persons and are knowable by reason. So this is almost kind of a little opposite action here. Indeed, natural law's Christian proponents say that the moral law exists and is accessible, though not perfectly known, even prior to God's revelation of it through Scripture. Otherwise, why would moral precepts like truth-telling, respect for others, or the right to self-defense be found in every culture? So if we look at every culture and we see these things, well, not everyone has the Christian Scripture. And so if we find in Scripture these things as being the good and the just and the beneficial, why is that the case? Well, maybe there's something that the common man, the corrupted man, is able to know apart from Scripture. So that's the kind of independent thing. And of course, that goes quite along with natural law in other aspects, if you know much about natural law.
Right. So the idea here is there are physical laws, right, that kind of govern the physical universe and that sort of thing. And there are also moral laws that exist. And so just like we can know the physical laws, we can by reason and experimentation and observation, that sort of thing, our experience, we can know the moral laws, right, by reason and so forth. And so that's kind of the basic idea. So, not only Christians can know what the morally right thing to do is, but people who are not Christians, non-theists, can know what the morally right thing to do is, because there is a objective, existent moral law, right, that anyone can capture and understand.
Right. Well, and therefore, these laws are not simply obligatory to Christians, since all are subject to God. So Jesus Christ is Lord of all. What is he not Lord of? Well, all encompasses all in this case. And so the subject of these natural laws that exist independent from kind of your belief system out in the world, apart from the indwelling in humanity specifically, then it's a requirement for all to know these things and act them out. So it's since all are subject to God and have knowledge of these laws, natural law is obligatory for all to carry out.
Yeah, right. And he says another critical element is the belief that human beings have a nature. So in this definition, nature is a teleological term that refers to our proper end or goal. Now, again, this kind of reaches back to the Greeks, right? Aristotle clearly thought we had everything has a nature, right? And so we did too. And so to function naturally, right, in quotes, means to obey rational principles that allow attainment of our moral ideals, both individually and collectively. In other words, the moral principles of the natural law are not simply guidelines for individual conduct, but are the standards against which we should judge the validity of our civil and international law. So they are broad, objective types of things that we should consider even when we're coming up with our, civil and laws that govern us.
Right. These things are self-evident that all men are created equal. Whoa, self-evident? Where? Yes, exactly. Out there. It's known. It's so in your face. It's like gravity. Gravity is, innately known because it's acting upon you at all times. And so those rights exist naturally to you as well. Natural law has its origin in classical philosophy. Aristotle speaks of the law of nature, says that everyone to some extent divines a natural justice and injustice that is binding on all men, even on those who have no association or covenant with each other. And boy, that sounds a lot like Romans 2 in there. So there may be something to that. The rediscovery of Aristotle's philosophy by medieval Christianity led to natural revival, which receives its classical articulation in Thomas Aquinas. And for Aristotle, though, the highest good was happiness. Of course it is. If you're living right life, then you're loving right life. A telos achievable only through a person who lives according to one's nature. Aquinas adopts this idea to Christian doctrine by arguing that God draws us to goodness and salvation, the ultimate form of happiness, via laws that govern the various dimensions of human life. If that sounds very Catholic to you, of course it is.
Yeah. And so he tells us that law must originate from a proper authority if it's to be legitimate. And of course, God, as the creator and governor of all that is, has rightful authority to be the lawgiver over every dimension of creation. So in addition, the function of law is to command or forbid. And since reason's proper function is to command, law then is something pertaining to our reason. And thus God's laws are products of the divine logic and are comprehensible to human reason. And so, as we mentioned, everybody then can understand these.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, considering natural law specifically, since God has endowed all humans with reason, the primary precepts of moral laws are universally known and are binding on all and contribute to the community's benefit. You know, if you put the thing that looks like a train on the two metal bars next to each other and you give it a push and it goes, well, no matter who you are, it's going to go better than if it's slightly off or a part of the wheel's off or you're only using one rail and it's designed for two. And so, it has no respect to men or the men who hold those conventions. Well, the four foundation precepts of natural law are that we should pursue good and avoid evil. All right, we're on board so far. We preserve life and combat that which threatens it, reproduce and care for our offspring, and seek knowledge and live together with others. So if you do those four things, you're golden. That's it.
There you go. And as you alluded to earlier, the go-to biblical passage for natural lawyers is Romans 2:14 and 15. Yeah. When Gentiles who do not possess the law do instinctively what the law requires, these, though not having a law, are law to themselves. They show that what the law requires is written on their hearts, to which their own conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts will accuse or perhaps excuse them. So there's the go-to, at least in terms of the New Testament, the go-to passage for those who hold to natural law theory of ethics.
Yeah. The child lies and then feels icky about it, gets away with it for a day, 2 days. But ultimately, that icky feeling, they go to the parents and confess that they were the ones that ate the cookies. And so their icky feeling must be from those cookies. And the parents sit them down and explain to them what guilt is. And, if there's not some basis for this feeling, if we're just a law unto ourselves, then why shouldn't we just be able to shift our virtue to match what we do and then not feel icky? Why do we have the icky feeling? Well, there might be something to the natural law aspect of that, the ick factor.